So there is a very good chance that right now, sitting right in the middle of your parents' or maybe your grandparents' dining room table is this little clear plastic organizer.
Oh, yeah.
And it is secretly just quietly accelerating their aging process. You know exactly what I'm talking about, right? It's that little pill box with the days of the week printed on the lids.
Right, Monday through Sunday.
Exactly. And if you look closely at it, it has slowly, almost imperceptibly over the years, completely colonized the dining space. I mean, it starts with just one little compartment for the
It's
morning.
just one little pill.
Yeah, there's the blood pressure medication they have to take the moment their feet hit the floor. But then, right after breakfast, out come the blood sugar regulator.
The midday routine.
Right. And by the afternoon, the joint pain medications and the anti-inflammatories make their appearance. And finally, sitting quietly on the nightstand, waiting for the end of the day, are the sleep aids.
It's just a constant cycle.
We see this everywhere, and it makes you wonder, like, have we collectively decided that the natural progression of aging is simply the accumulation of pill bottles? Have we just accepted that growing older is, entirely synonymous with becoming a walking pharmacy?
It is a striking visual, and sadly, for millions of people, it is just the accepted reality. We have completely normalized this trajectory. I mean, we've basically equated the aging process itself with being a disease.
Rather than a natural phase of life.
Exactly. Rather than recognizing it as a natural biological phase that brings about very specific physiological shifts, we're talking about mechanical and chemical changes like slower digestion, a decrease in bone density, or a gradual drop in baseline immunity.
Which all makes sense as the body gets older.
They absolutely make sense. But what is so fascinating and frankly a little tragic about our modern approach is that we treat these predictable, natural shifts entirely as isolated medical emergencies.
We're constantly putting out fires.
Right. We try to medicate the symptom rather than structurally supporting the body through the transition. But the reality is, so many of these shifts can be supported, mitigated, and even entirely corrected by simply changing how we fuel the machine.
And that paradigm shift is exactly what we are focusing on today. Welcome to the deep dive.
Glad to be here.
We have this incredible synthesis of material today, centered entirely around ancient Indian culinary wisdom and superfoods. And it features a fascinating, highly specific guide targeted right at that 65 and older demographic.
It's such an important demographic to focus on.
It really is. The whole premise here is about how to swap out that dining table mini pharmacy for powerful, everyday kitchen staples. We are looking at a framework where food is not just a source of calories, but it is functional medicine.
And we should establish our baseline right here at the top.
Right.
We are not looking for magic pills.
Right.
We are not talking about overnight miraculous cures. The information we are exploring is deeply rooted in Ayurvedic tradition's knowledge that has been practically applied for thousands of years.
And now, modern science is finally catching up.
Exactly. It's now being rigorously validated by modern nutritional biochemistry. The mission today is to understand the exact mechanisms of how specific foods interact with the aging body's changing chemistry.
Because the chemistry does change.
It absolutely does. When your digestion invariably slows down, when your bones start losing their mineral matrix, when your immune system needs a serious defensive boost, how can you use functional, everyday ingredients to push back?
So it's about preparation and defense.
Right. We are breaking down the blueprint for an energetic, pain-free life that relies on the pantry rather than the pharmacy.
Okay, let's unpack this because to start, we have to go right after one of the biggest, most deeply ingrained nutritional boogeymen of the last 40 years.
Oh, I know where this is going.
Yeah, we were talking about fat. I mean, if you think about the messaging that someone who is hitting 65 or 70 today received for the vast majority of their adult life, it was nothing but absolute unyielding fear-mongering around dietary fat.
The low-fat craze of the 80s and 90s.
Exactly. The narrative drilled into them was, avoid fat at all costs, buy everything fat-free, or you're going to drop dead of a heart attack. My parents had fat-free everything in the fridge.
It was arguably one of the most damaging dietary dogmas of the modern era. I mean, the low-fat craze convinced an entire generation that any and all fat was inherently dangerous.
Which just isn't true.
No, it completely ignored human biology.
Yeah.
Our bodies, and this becomes critically important as we age, absolutely require high-quality fats to function at a cellular level. Without it, structural integrity begins to fail.
Let's use an analogy here because it makes so much sense when you visualize it. Think of the aging body like a beautifully crafted, very complex, but very old machine.
Right.
And if you have an old machine with hundreds of moving gears and hinges, and it has been running nonstop for 65 years, what happens when you completely deprive it of oil?
It dries out.
It dries out. It starts grinding. The hinges get stiff and rusted. And that is exactly what happens to the human skeletal system. One of the most ubiquitous complaints of aging is the physical sound of joints clicking or cracking.
Accompanied by that deep, nagging, aching pain.
Yeah. The joints are literally losing their fluid. They are drying out from the inside.
That is a perfect mechanical analogy for the biological reality. Because, between every joint in your body, there's something called synovial fluid.
Synovial fluid.
Right. It is a thick, viscous liquid. As we age, the body's natural production of this synovial fluid dramatically decreases.
So the oil is literally running low.
Exactly. The cartilage dries out, it frays, and you get that bone-on-bone grinding. And this is where the data introduces our first crucial intervention, Desi-A2 cow ghee.
Now wait. I know exactly what people are thinking right now because my own doctor told my parents to avoid ghee. Isn't ghee just pure saturated fat? How is that the solution?
It is fat, but we have to distinguish between highly processed, oxidized seed oils and the complex lipid profile of pure, traditionally churned A2 cow ghee.
So not all fats are created equal.
Not at all. This isn't the villain it was made out to be. It is a vital internal lubricant. The specific fatty acids in pure ghee work systemically to help restore and maintain that synovial fluid.
Oh, wow.
It possesses inherently lubricating properties that ease the stiffness in those dried out joints.
Yeah.
You are, quite literally, oiling the stiff hinges of the machine.
But the benefits don't stop at the joints, right? Because if we look at the other massive fear associated with aging, it's cognitive decline.
The brain fog.
Oh, yeah, it's the brain fog, the memory loss, the terrifying slide toward dementia or Alzheimer's.
Precisely. If we move from the joints up to the nervous system, we have to recognize a fundamental anatomical fact. The human brain is composed of approximately 60% fat.
60%?
Yeah. The myelin sheaths, which are the protective insulation wrapped around every single nerve in your brain that allows electrical signals to fire rapidly, those are made of fat.
So the wiring needs fat to work.
Right. The brain requires a constant supply of high-quality lipids to maintain its physical structure. The short-chain fatty acids and the omega-3s found in high-quality ghee act as neuroprotective agents.
It's literally brain food.
You are actively feeding the brain the exact raw architectural materials it needs to preserve its neural pathways and protect against age-related cognitive degradation.
Now, there is a massive caveat here that we absolutely cannot skip over because it is not just about what you are eating, it is entirely about how you consume it.
This is critical.
The instructions here are incredibly strict about the preparation method. You do not use this ghee for deep frying. You don't use it for heavy tempering or searing spices at a high heat.
And the chemistry explains why. When you take any fat, even a healthy one, and subject it to the extremely high heat required for deep frying, you alter its molecular structure.
You break it.
Basically, yeah. It reaches its smoke point, it oxidizes, and it actually creates free radicals, which are the very things that cause cellular aging and inflammation.
So you're turning a medicine into a poison.
If you fry with it, you destroy the delicate nutritional profile that makes it a medicine. The recommendation is to consume just 1 to 2 spoons a day, completely raw.
Wait, so you just pour it over the food?
Exactly. You pour it over a warm, freshly cooked roti, or you mix a spoonful directly into a hot bowl of dal right before you eat it.
Oh, so the heat of the food melts it.
Right, the residual heat of the food melts the ghee, but it doesn't cook it. This ensures you are ingesting the healthy fats, the fat-soluble vitamins like A, D, E, and K, exactly as nature intended,
Allowing them to act as that internal joint lubricant and brain food.
without any of the toxic byproducts of oxidation.
It's a tiny, simple behavioral shift, from a cooking medium in the pan to a raw, functional topping on the plate. And speaking of functional fats, there is another one briefly highlighted here, which is coconut.
Oh, coconut's fantastic.
It seems to act like a multi-tool for the aging body.
Coconut is a phenomenal resource. It provides multiple therapeutic functions depending on how you consume it. First, you have fresh coconut water.
Which is delicious.
And it is essentially nature's isotonic sports drink. It is loaded with vital electrolytes like potassium and magnesium, which is crucial because, as we will discuss later, Older adults chronically struggle with cellular dehydration.
They just don't get enough water.
Exactly. Then you have the coconut flesh and the cold-pressed coconut oil. These are rich in medium-chain triglycerides, or MCTs.
I've heard a lot about MCTs in keto diets.
Yeah, MCTs are unique because they bypass the normal digestive process and go straight to the liver, where they rapidly convert it into ketones.
And ketones are like fuel.
Highly efficient fuel. The aging brain can use ketones as an alternative fuel source to glucose. Furthermore, those fats are essential for maintaining the lipid barrier of the skin, keeping it radiant and preventing the extreme dryness that often accompanies old age.
Okay, so we have our foundational fats with ghee and coconut, but then we move into nuts, specifically walnuts and almonds. And this is where the brain connection gets incredibly literal.
It really does.
Have you ever actually stopped to look at a shelled walnut? It is uncanny. It looks exactly like a miniature human brain. You have the two distinct hemispheres, the intricate folds, the wrinkles.
It is a beautiful example of the doctrine of signatures.
What's that?
It's the ancient idea that a food often physically resembles the organ it supports. And modern biochemistry completely validates this shape for walnuts.
That's wild.
Walnuts are one of the most potent plant-based sources of alpha-linolenic acid, which is a specific type of omega-3. They have a profoundly calming, anti-inflammatory effect on the central nervous system.
Actively calming stress pathways.
Exactly, and boosting working memory.
Yeah.
But when it comes to both walnuts and almonds, there is a very specific, almost militant traditional practice that we need to talk about.
Yes, this is the part that genuinely blew my mind because it validates every grandmother ever. If you grew up around a traditional Indian household, you know the rule.
You can't eat them raw.
They will never, under any circumstances, let you eat a raw almond straight out of a bag. It is forbidden. They insist on soaking the almonds in water overnight, and then the next morning, they meticulously peel the brown skin off every single almond before you are allowed to eat it.
Every single one.
And as a kid or even as an adult, you just think, why are we overcomplicating a snack? Just eat the nut. It's supposed to be healthy. But there is incredibly advanced biological science behind this tedious morning ritual, isn't there?
There is, and it revolves around a fascinating chemical compound called phytic acid. To understand this, you have to look at it from the perspective of the almond tree.
Okay, thinking like a tree.
The almond is a seed. Its biological imperative is to fall to the ground, survive the winter, and eventually germinate into a new tree. It does not want to be eaten and digested by an animal or a human before it can grow.
So it fights back.
In a way, yes.
Mm-hmm.
As a survival mechanism, the plant concentrates phytic acid in the brown skin of the nut.
It's essentially a chemical defense shield.
Exactly. Phytic acid is what nutritional scientists classify as an anti-nutrient. When a human consumes raw almonds with the skin on, that phytic acid enters the digestive tract and acts like a chemical chelator.
What does a chelator do?
It literally reaches out and binds tightly to essential minerals present in your gut, specifically calcium, iron, and zinc. It locks them into an indigestible compound, effectively stealing them from your body, and you pass them out as waste.
Which is the absolute last thing a 65-year-old needs. I mean, you think you're doing something healthy, you're eating a handful of raw almonds, but the defensive shield of the nut is actively robbing your body of the exact calcium your weakening bones desperately need.
It is entirely counterproductive.
Hmm.
But when you soak those almonds in water overnight, you trick the seed.
Oh, you trick it into thinking it's time to grow.
Precisely. The moisture signals to the almond that it is time to wait up and germinate. The seed begins to sprout, and to do so, it naturally releases an enzyme called phytase, which breaks down and neutralizes the phytic acid.
The defense shield is lowered.
And furthermore, the skin swells and slips off effortlessly. So by soaking and peeling, you completely disarm the anti-nutrient.
That makes so much sense.
Plus, from a mechanical perspective, an overnight soak softens the nut significantly, making it much easier to chew for older adults with compromised dental strength. And traditionally, Ayurvedic medicine states that soaking removes the heat of the nut.
What does that mean biologically, the heat?
In modern terms, raw nuts contain enzyme inhibitors that make them very difficult to digest, requiring the stomach to work overtime, generating metabolic heat and often causing indigestion. Soaking neutralizes those inhibitors, transforming the almond from a dense, difficult-to-digest block of fat into a highly bioavailable, gentle superfood, perfectly suited for a sluggish, elderly digestive system.
It is brilliant. It is ancient wisdom anticipating complex modern biochemistry. So at this point, we've oiled the machine with raw ghee and we've fed the brain with soaked almonds and walnuts.
The engine is lubricated.
But what about the actual physical structure of the machine? The frame, the muscles and the bones that actually hold us upright against gravity.
This brings us to a massive, yet surprisingly, under-discussed biological threat in the aging process. It is a medical condition known as sarcopenia.
Let's define that because it sounds intimidating.
Sarcopenia is the age-related, involuntary loss of skeletal muscle mass and strength. As we cross into our 60s and 70s, our bodies begin to experience something called anabolic resistance.
Which means?
Basically, the cellular machinery that takes the protein you eat and turns it into new muscle tissue gets rusty and inefficient. So even if you are eating normally, your muscle fibers are literally shrinking and wasting away.
That's terrifying.
It is. This is why you so often see elderly individuals developing progressively thinning arms and legs, accompanied by a profound, pervasive physical weakness and extreme fatigue just from doing daily chores.
Now, if you tell a modern fitness enthusiast or a standard nutritionist that someone is losing muscle mass, their immediate reflexive response is going to be, well, feed them more protein, give them heavy protein-dense foods like chickpeas, what we call kale, or big bowls of kidney beans like rajma.
Just load them up.
Yeah, just load the system with protein to force the muscle to rebuild. But the data pushes back incredibly hard against this advice for the elderly demographic. Why is that standard advice so dangerous here?
Because that advice fundamentally ignores the reality of an aging digestive tract. Remember, the entire system is slowing down. A 65 or 70-year-old stomach produces significantly less gastric acid and fewer digestive enzymes than a 30-year-old stomach.
So it can't handle the heavy lifting anymore.
Exactly. Heavy legumes like kidney beans and large chickpeas contain complex carbohydrates called oligosaccharides. If you feed an elderly person a thick, heavy kidney bean curry, their weakened stomach simply cannot break those complex sugars down.
So the food just sits there.
It sits there, it ferments in the gut, and it produces immense amounts of gas. The result is severe, painful bloating and profound gastrointestinal discomfort.
Which makes them feel even worse.
Furthermore, the body ends up expending so much energy just struggling to digest the heavy meal that it completely defeats the purpose of the protein. You're exhausting the person rather than nourishing them.
So we are left with a massive catch-22. I mean, they desperately need high-quality protein to stop the sarcopenia and save their thinning muscles, but their digestive engines can't handle standard high-protein foods. What is the actual solution?
The solution provided is remarkably elegant, and it relies on a specific ingredient, green moong dal.
Green moong dal.
Yes. According to the texts, and corroborated by modern nutrition, green moong dal is arguably the most easily digestible source of plant-based protein on the planet. Its protein structure is exceptionally light.
So it doesn't have those complex sugars.
Exactly. It lacks the complex, gas-producing oligosaccharides found in kidney beans. The material notes that it is so gentle on the digestive tract that in traditional medicine, it is the primary food given to someone recovering from a severe, debilitating illness.
Oh, like when someone is bedridden?
Right. It delivers the precise, essential amino acids required to halt muscle wasting and rebuild tissue, but it demands almost zero effort from the stomach to process it.
And there's a very specific actionable detail here on how to maximize its power. You don't just boil it into a soup. If you take that green moong dal, let it sprout over a couple of days, and then lightly steam it before eating, you are essentially performing alchemy.
It changes the nutritional profile entirely.
The data states that the sprouting process actually multiplies the inherent vitamin content, especially vitamin C and the B vitamins, by up to tenfold. You are taking a perfect, gentle protein, supercharging its micronutrient profile, and keeping it incredibly easy to digest.
It is the ultimate functional food for aging muscles. And for those looking for variety, the material also highlights amaranth.
What exactly is amaranth?
Amaranth is an ancient, gluten-free pseudo-grain. It is an absolute nutritional powerhouse, packing high levels of highly bioavailable protein alongside dense concentrations of calcium, iron, and magnesium.
So it's another great alternative.
It serves as a stellar, easily digestible alternative for anyone focusing on a plant-based diet to maintain their muscular and structural integrity.
Okay, so we have a strategy to save the muscles. Let's pivot slightly to the bones they are attached to, because, I mean, Protecting muscle mass is only half the battle. Muscles need an anchor.
Right.
If the skeletal frame they are attached to is hollowing out from the inside, that muscle strength is useless. And that brings us to the most dangerous time of day for an elderly diet, 4:00 p.m.
Besides, the afternoon slump.
Exactly. It's 4:00 p.m. The lunch has worn off. Dinner is hours away. The afternoon hunger pangs hit. The energy dips. And what does almost everyone reach for? A cup of sweet tea and a plate of processed refined flour biscuits or cookies.
It's a very deeply ingrained habit.
Yeah, it really is. It feels comforting. But it is providing absolutely zero nutritional value, isn't it?
Zero nutritional value, and in fact, it is actively causing harm. When you reach for refined flour biscuits and sweet tea, you are introducing a massive spike of simple refined sugars into the bloodstream.
Which causes an insulin spike.
Right. This triggers an insulin spike, which promotes systemic inflammation and eventually leads to an even harder energy crash an hour later. It is a vicious cycle.
So how do we break it?
The material offers a brilliant, highly functional swap for this exact moment in the day. Instead of mindlessly reaching for the tea and biscuits, the prescription is to keep a jar of roasted macana, also known as foxnuts or lotus seeds and pumpkin seeds, on the table.
Let's break down the mechanics of why this specific swap is so critical for the bones. As we age, the body begins to suffer from osteoporosis.
The thinning of the bones.
Right. The biological remodeling process gets out of balance. The body starts breaking down old bone tissue faster than it can build new bone tissue. Your solid bones start resembling a fragile, porous honeycomb. Macana is essentially a natural, highly absorbable calcium bomb.
It's loaded with it.
So you're sitting there at 4 p.m., enjoying a crunchy snack, and instead of eating empty flour that spikes your blood sugar, you are directly delivering the exact mineral your body needs to reinforce its bone density.
And then you pair that macana with the pumpkin seeds. The analysis highlights pumpkin seeds because they are densely loaded with two specific minerals, magnesium and zinc.
And magnesium helps with the calcium, right?
Exactly. Magnesium is required for the body to actually assimilate the calcium from the macana into the bone matrix.
Right.
But the zinc is where it gets really interesting, particularly for the elderly demographic.
Why is zinc so important here?
Zinc plays a foundational role in neurological health and neurotransmitter function. Older adults frequently suffer from zinc deficiency, which closely mimics and actively contributes to feelings of depression, severe mood swings, and that generalized irritability that people often just dismiss as, getting cranky with age.
Well, so it's not just personality, it's a mineral deficiency.
Very often, yes. Adequate zinc levels stabilize the mood. Furthermore, for elderly men specifically, zinc is an absolutely non-negotiable mineral for maintaining healthy prostate function and preventing enlargement.
So by simply swapping a processed biscuit for a handful of macana and pumpkin seeds, you are simultaneously rebuilding bone density, stabilizing mood chemistry, and protecting organ function.
It's incredible.
That is the very definition of using food as medicine. But what about the overall energy baseline? We talked about the fatigue associated with muscle loss, but there is another very specific complaint highlighted here.
The shortness of breath.
Yeah. It's the older individual who tries to walk a short distance, maybe just up a flight of stairs, and immediately suffers from severe shortness of breath, accompanied by a deep, lethargic, whole-body fatigue.
Yes, and it is crucial to understand that specific presentation shortness of breath combined with systemic lethargy is very often not just a symptom of muscle weakness. It is frequently a sign of low hemoglobin levels.
Which carries oxygen.
Exactly. Hemoglobin is the protein in your red blood cells responsible for carrying oxygen from your lungs to the rest of your body. When iron levels drop, hemoglobin drops, and your tissues are literally suffocating for oxygen, hence the shortness of breath.
And to fix this oxygen crisis, the material reveals what has to be the ultimate time-tested grandmother's remedy. It is a remarkably simple combination roasted chana, which are whole brown chickpeas that have been roasted and had the skin removed, eaten together with jaggery, also known as gur, which is a traditional unrefined dark cane sugar.
This specific pairing is a masterclass in nutritional synergy. If you look at them individually, jaggery is produced in traditional iron vessels, making it an incredibly rich, concentrated, natural source of dietary iron.
And the chana.
The roasted chana provides a solid, easily digestible base of protein and amino acids. But when you chew them and consume them together, a biological synergy occurs.
They unlock each other.
Exactly. Plant-based iron, known as non-heme iron, is notoriously difficult for the human digestive tract to absorb on its own. However, the amino acids present in the protein of the chana act as chemical carriers.
Oh, they grab onto the iron.
They bind to the iron from the jaggery, creating a chelated complex that the intestinal wall readily recognizes and absorbs at a remarkably rapid rate. You aren't just ingesting iron, you are actively optimizing its uptake into the bloodstream to rapidly synthesize new hemoglobin.
And the practical result is immediate. The texts note that it instantly boosts energy levels, builds the blood, and as a fantastic psychological bonus, it completely curbs those nagging afternoon sweet cravings.
Because it's satisfying the sugar craving naturally.
Right, because the jaggery satisfies that desire for sugar, but with a low glycemic index and a massive payload of minerals. It's brilliant.
It truly is.
But, and this is a massive but that we have to address, all of this perfect, gentle protein from the moong dal, all this bone-building calcium from the makhana, all this iron from the jaggery, it is all completely 100% useless if the body's central supply chain is broken.
The engine room.
If the engine room, the gastrointestinal tract, is clogged up, sluggish, or running dry, none of these nutrients are getting into the bloodstream.
Absolutely. You can consume the most meticulously curated diet of superfoods in the world, but if your gastrointestinal tract is compromised, you cannot extract, process, or absorb the nutrients. You are just creating very expensive waste.
Which nobody wants to do.
Exactly. And the biological reality, as heavily emphasized in the data, is that as we age, peristalsis, the involuntary muscle contractions that move food through our intestines, naturally weakens. The intestines become sluggish and lazy.
So if that sluggish system encounters the standard modern diet, say white flour, highly processed bread, heavy, greasy parathas, what actually happens inside?
It creates a physical blockade. The texts describe refined white flour in an aging gut as acting literally like a thick paste or glue. It lacks the fiber to keep things moving.
So it just sticks.
Just adhered to the walls of these already sluggish intestines, halting digestion, causing severe constipation, and preventing the absorption of anything else you eat.
To combat this, to get the engine turning over again, the recommendation is to return to a very specific type of complex carbohydrate porridge, traditionally known as dalia, and whole oats. And the science here centers entirely around a specific type of soluble fiber called beta-glucan.
Beta-glucan is a fascinating compound. When you consume oats or dalia, the beta-glucan enters the digestive tract and absorbs water, forming a thick, highly viscous, gel-like substance.
I love the metaphor used to describe this. It acts like a physical sponge moving through the intestines.
Yes, a sponge.
Because it is so viscous, it moves slowly and methodically, and as it passes through, it literally traps and soaks up bile acids in the gut. Now, bile acids are made of cholesterol. So by trapping them and pulling them out of the body as waste, the sponge is actively pulling bad cholesterol out of your system.
That is precisely the mechanism of action. Because the liver needs bile acids to digest food. When the beta-glucan sweeps them away, the liver is forced to pull LDL cholesterol directly out of your bloodstream to manufacture more bile.
That's a genius design.
It is a brilliant mechanical way to naturally lower blood cholesterol levels while simultaneously regulating bowel transit time and feeding the beneficial bacteria in your microbiome.
However, there is a very strict culinary caveat attached to this. You cannot make it sweet. If you take this incredible cholesterol-lowering oat porridge and dump 3 spoons of white sugar or synthetic syrup on it, you instantly negate the metabolic benefits.
They're just adding fuel to the fire.
The strict recommendation is to prepare it savory. You cook it with a pinch of salt, some cumin, and you load it up with finely chopped vegetables. That adds even more roughage and micronutrients, turning it into a highly effective, heart-healthy meal that regulates digestion without causing a massive blood sugar spike.
Savory oats are the way to go.
But even with a great fiber intake, I know so many older folks who constantly complain about a heavy, uncomfortable, tight feeling after they eat lunch or dinner. Like the food is just sitting right in the center of their stomach, heavy as a rock, refusing to move. How do we help them break that down?
This is where we introduce a highly specific functional fruit papaya. And we aren't just talking about papaya for its vitamin content. Papaya contains a highly concentrated, biologically active enzyme called papain.
Now, I used the phrase targeted missile earlier, but that's probably a terrible, dramatic analogy for an enzyme. How does papain actually work?
A better analogy would be to think of papain as a pair of biochemical scissors.
Scissors.
Proteins are essentially long, complex chains of amino acids tightly bound together. An aging stomach often struggles to produce enough of its own hydrochloric acid and pepsin to break those tough chains apart.
So it just can't cut them.
Right. When you eat a heavy meal, the stomach just churns and churns fruitlessly, causing that heavy, rock-like sensation.
It's working overtime but getting nowhere.
Exactly. But when you introduce a slice of fresh papaya after a meal, the papain enzyme goes to work. These biochemical scissors walk down those complex protein chains and quite literally snip the peptide bonds, cleaving the heavy proteins into smaller, easily manageable amino acids that the weaker stomach can effortlessly absorb.
It does the heavy lifting of digestion for you.
It acts as a profound, natural cure for the bloating, the gas, and the constipation that cause that debilitating post-meal discomfort.
That is incredible. Just snipping the problem away. Which brings us to what I think is perhaps the most surprising and frankly the most dangerous issue uncovered in this entire analysis, the hydration crisis.
This is a big one.
Now, we all know we need to drink water. It's the most basic rule of health. But the biology of aging reveals a terrifying truth about thirst as we get older. The actual physical mechanism in the brain that tells us to drink begins to numb.
It is a gradual, silent failure of the neurological thirst cue. Deep in the brain, the hypothalamus contains osmoreceptors that monitor the concentration of your blood. When you need water, they trigger the sensation of thirst.
If they stop working.
In older adults, the sensitivity of these receptors degrades. An elderly person can be clinically severely dehydrated, their blood volume dropping, their tissues parched, but their brain simply will not send the signal. They don't feel thirsty, they just forget to drink.
And the cascading consequences of that dehydration are catastrophic.
They are severe and often misdiagnosed. Chronic low-level dehydration leads to recurring painful urinary tract infections because the kidneys aren't flushing out bacteria.
Oh, wow.
It causes sudden drops in blood pressure, orthostatic hypotension, which leads to bouts of dizziness and vertigo, which in turn lead to catastrophic, life-altering falls.
From a simple lack of water.
And tying back to our engine room, it guarantees chronic, severe constipation because the colon is desperately extracting every single last drop of water from the stool just to keep the vital organs functioning, turning waste into concrete.
So, knowing all that, you can't just hand a 70-year-old a gallon jug of plain water and say, drink this, because their brain isn't demanding it. And let's be honest, chugging plain water feels like a chore when you aren't thirsty.
It feels impossible to them.
The solution provided here is a phenomenal, highly functional swap, buttermilk, traditionally known as chas, but we are not talking about plain sour buttermilk.
No, the specific medicinal prescription here is a fresh glass of buttermilk consumed shortly after lunch, but heavily seasoned with roasted cumin powder and a pinch of black salt.
That sounds amazing, actually.
This combination is brilliant on multiple levels. First, from a purely sensory perspective, the flavor profile is incredible. It is savory, slightly tart from the fermentation, and deeply earthy from the roasted cumin.
So they'll actually want to drink it.
It makes the act of hydrating highly palatable and enjoyable, encouraging them to actually finish the glass and rehydrate the tissues. The black salt also provides trace minerals and electrolytes to help the cells hold on to the water.
But it's not just a clever trick to get water into the system. There is a massive gut health angle here too, isn't there?
A critical one. Buttermilk is a naturally fermented food. This means it is absolutely teeming with live probiotics, the beneficial bacteria that make up your microbiome.
Which decline as we get older.
Yes. As we age, we suffer from dysbiosis. The thriving colonies of good bacteria in our gut naturally die off, diminish, and lose their diversity. This loss of gut flora is a primary underlying driver of the sluggish digestion and nutrient malabsorption we discussed earlier.
The workers in the factory have all quit.
Precisely. By drinking this seasoned buttermilk daily, you are executing a two-for-one solution. You are combating the silent hydration crisis, and you are actively reseeding the gut with millions of beneficial probiotic workers necessary to break down food, synthesize vitamins, and keep the engine running smoothly.
And the focus on the gut doesn't stop there. The data introduces 3 specific, incredibly powerful seeds that act as functional medicine for the cardiovascular and digestive systems. Let's start with flax seeds, or ELSI.
Flax seeds are championed here as a premier plant-based source of omega-3 fatty acids, specifically alpha-linolenic acid. We talked about omega-3s earlier in relation to the brain, but here the focus is entirely cardiovascular.
How so?
The omega-3s in flax seeds act on the endothelium, the inner lining of your blood vessels. They help keep aging veins and arteries pliable and flexible, preventing the arterial stiffness that inevitably leads to high blood pressure, plaque rupture, and heart blockages.
But there is a massive, absolutely crucial warning attached to flax seeds in the material. If you get the preparation wrong, you are entirely wasting your time and money.
This is a vital mechanical detail. The texts explicitly state that flax seeds must be gently dry roasted in a pan and then ground into a fine powder.
Why? What happens if you just sprinkle the whole seeds on your yogurt? I see people do that all the time.
If an elderly person, or anyone, frankly, but especially someone with diminished digestive fire, consumes whole, intact flax seeds, they get zero benefit.
Zero.
None. The outer hull of a flaxseed is so incredibly tough and fibrous that it will pass entirely through the human digestive system completely intact. It goes in and comes out with the omega-3s locked safely inside.
Well, that's useless.
By gently roasting them, you make them brittle, and by grinding them, you mechanically break that tough outer barrier, making the vital lipids fully bioavailable to the body. The daily recommendation is half a spoon of this freshly ground powder mixed into a glass of water or stirred into yogurt.
Got it. Always grind the flax. The next seed on the list is fenugreek, or methi, and we're pivoting to blood sugar control here.
Yes, fenugreek seeds are deeply respected in Ayurvedic medicine for metabolic control. They are loaded with a specific type of soluble fiber called galactomannan, alongside specific alkaloids.
And what do those do?
When consumed, these compounds essentially form a barrier in the intestine that drastically slows down the rate at which carbohydrates are broken down and absorbed into the bloodstream. This prevents those rapid, damaging spikes in blood sugar that lead to insulin resistance.
And the method of taking it.
The traditional, highly effective method is to take half a spoon of raw fenugreek seeds and soak them in a glass of water overnight. Over the course of the night, the water becomes infused with these soluble fibers and active compounds.
And then you drink it.
First thing in the morning, on an empty stomach, you drink that infused water and you thoroughly chew the softened seeds. Doing this sets a metabolic baseline, providing a profound, stabilizing effect on blood sugar levels for the entirety of the day.
And the third and final seed in this protocol is chia, which ties right back into our discussion on chronic dehydration and sluggish digestion.
Chia seeds possess an incredible physical property. They are highly hydrophilic. They love water. When you soak chia seeds in liquid, they rapidly absorb it, swelling up to 10 times their size and forming a thick, mucilaginous gel.
Like little boba pearls?
Exactly. When an older adult consumes this chia gel, it acts like a slow-release hydration capsule. It retains moisture as it travels through the digestive tract, aiding in continuous systemic hydration. Simultaneously, that soft, gel-like fiber gently sweeps the walls of the intestines, promoting regular, very smooth bowel movements without the harsh cramping caused by chemical laxatives.
Okay, let's take stock of where we are. We have oiled the joints with raw ghee, we've rescued the fading muscles with pre-digested green moong dal, we've reinforced the fragile bones with the calcium and magnesium of makhana and pumpkin seeds,
A total structural overhaul.
and we have completely overhauled the entire engine room, fixing the hydration, the digestion, and the absorption with oats, papaya, buttermilk, and seeds. The internal systems are running smoothly. Now we move to the daily battle, the defenders.
Environmental threats.
Exactly. Because even if the machine is running perfectly, it still has to exist in a harsh world. How do we protect this aging body from the daily wear and tear, the environmental stress, the pollution, and the naturally declining power of the immune system?
This is where prevention is key.
Here is where it gets really interesting, because the sheer concentrated potency of these natural defenders is staggering. Let's start with the absolute king of the category amla, the Indian gooseberry.
If you are looking for the apex predator of natural detoxifiers and immunity boosters, amla is it. The data highlights amla primarily as an unparalleled, almost incomprehensible powerhouse of vitamin C.
How much are we talking?
To put the density into perspective, the texts state that a single small amla fruit contains the vitamin C equivalent of roughly 20 normal oranges.
20 oranges in one fruit the size of a golf ball. I mean, you couldn't physically eat 20 oranges in a sitting without making yourself sick, but you can get all that defense from one amla.
The concentration is astounding. And we need to understand exactly what vitamin C is doing here. It isn't just about preventing a cold. Vitamin C is a highly potent antioxidant.
Let's do an ELI 5 on antioxidants, because it's a buzzword everyone uses, but few actually understand. What is it actually doing in the body?
Every day, through normal breathing, metabolism, and exposure to sunlight and pollution, your body produces molecules called free radicals. A free radical is an unstable molecule that is missing an electron.
So it's looking for one.
Desperately. Because it is unstable, it aggressively attacks your healthy cells, tearing into cell walls and DNA to steal an electron and stabilize itself. This cellular damage is called oxidative stress. It is the literal biological mechanism of aging.
It's rust. It's the body rusting at a cellular level.
Exactly. Now, an antioxidant, like the massive dose of vitamin C in AMLA, is a molecule that has a spare electron. It willingly donates its extra electron to the free radical, neutralizing the threat before it can damage your cells.
Like a molecular bodyguard.
By flooding the system with AMLA, you are providing millions of these electron donors. The material specifically highlights AMLA's role in neutralizing the oxidative damage that causes cataracts and macular degeneration, actively protecting against failing eyesight.
And the delivery system for this shield.
The sources suggest taking 2 spoons of pure AMLA juice, mixing it into a glass of warm water, and drinking it first thing in the morning on an empty stomach. It rapidly enters the bloodstream, setting up a systemic defensive shield for the entire day.
Now, right alongside amla, the texts mention a plant that has earned the title of the miracle tree moringa.
Moringa leaves have exploded in global recognition over the last decade, and the biochemistry completely justifies the hype. The texts point out that moringa leaves are incredibly nutrient-dense, packing high levels of bioavailable vitamin A, vitamin C, and iron.
So it's another powerhouse.
When an aging body is experiencing a generalized drop in vitality, that vague, whole-body fatigue that isn't tied to an illness, moringa acts as a profound, natural energy boost. It fortifies the immune system, provides the iron for oxygen transport, and supports digestion all simultaneously.
Okay, so amla and moringa are aggressively defending against physical cellular degradation. But what about systemic stress? The invisible, grinding wear and tear on the nervous system, the anxiety, the elevated heart rate, the inability to wind down.
The mental toll of aging.
This is where the material introduces a category of medicine called adaptogens, specifically highlighting ashwagandha.
Ashwagandha is an ancient adaptogenic root. Now, what does adaptogen mean? It means its primary biological function is to help the body adapt to and modulate stress.
Okay, how does it do that?
When you are stressed, whether it's physical pain, emotional worry, or environmental noise, your adrenal glands pump out a hormone called cortisol. Cortisol is the fight or flight hormone.
It's the alarm bell.
Exactly. And in short bursts, it is life-saving. But in older adults, that alarm bell often gets stuck in the on position. Chronically high cortisol is devastating.
Because it just wears you down.
It is a catabolic hormone, meaning it actively breaks down muscle tissue for quick energy, it suppresses the immune system, and it completely ruins sleep architecture. Ashwagandha works by modulating the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. It actively lowers circulating cortisol levels.
Turning off the alarm.
The material notes its long history in Ayurveda for turning off that alarm bell, significantly improving sleep quality and actively supporting and preserving cognitive function by protecting the brain from the corrosive effects of chronic stress.
Okay, ashwagandha sounds incredible for stress, but the material also pairs it with a spice that is probably already sitting in everyone's pantry, but completely misunderstood and underutilized: cinnamon.
Ah, cinnamon.
Honestly, I just put a dash of cinnamon in my coffee because it smells and tastes good. Is there actual potent medicinal value there, or is it just for flavor?
It is far more than a flavoring agent. It is a highly active medicinal vark. The data highlights its powerful antimicrobial properties, but its most critical systemic function for the aging demographic lies in its ability to aggressively regulate blood sugar levels.
How does it do that?
The active compounds in cinnamon actually mimic insulin. They improve the sensitivity of the insulin receptors on your cells, meaning your body needs to produce less insulin to shuttle glucose out of the blood and into the muscles.
So it takes the pressure off the pancreas?
A simple sprinkle of high-quality cinnamon on your morning oatmeal or brewed into an afternoon tea effectively turns that meal into a metabolic regulator, preventing the sugar spikes that cause vascular damage and brain fog.
So, by the end of the day, the body is defended by amla, the stress alarm is turned off by ashwagandha, and the blood sugar is regulated by cinnamon. Which brings us to the final phase, the night shift.
Getting ready for bed.
As you mentioned earlier, sleep is when the body actually goes into the shop for repairs. But for the elderly, the texts point out a grim, exhausting reality. Nights are very rarely peaceful. They're often filled with tossing and turning, broken sleep cycles, and waking up feeling more stiff, inflamed, and achy than when they went to bed.
The inability to achieve deep, restorative, slow-wave sleep is a major accelerator of the aging process. If the brain cannot transition the body into those deep sleep cycles, it cannot release the human growth hormone necessary to repair cellular damage, and it cannot flush the metabolic waste from the brain.
Which is why they wake up feeling terrible.
And unfortunately, the modern reliance on pharmaceutical sleep aids often results in a synthetic, chemical unconsciousness that doesn't actually trigger those physiological repair mechanisms, leaving the person groggy, dependent, and unhealed.
So, to replace the sleeping pills on the nightstand and to replace the nighttime painkillers for those aching joints, the material introduces the perfect, historically proven day ender, a ritual that has been used for centuries, turmeric milk, which has recently become globally famous as golden milk.
The foundational element of this ritual is turmeric, and specifically the highly active botanical compound locked inside it called curcumin. The texts state unequivocally that curcumin is one of the world's most powerful, naturally occurring anti-inflammatory elements.
How does it work compared to, say, an over-the-counter ibuprofen?
Over-the-counter anti-inflammatories generally target a single inflammatory pathway, like the COX-2 enzyme. Curcumin is remarkable because it is pleiotropic. It simultaneously downregulates multiple inflammatory enzymes and pathways at the exact same time, including COX-2, LOX, and various cytokines.
So it's hitting the inflammation from all angles.
When an older adult is suffering from swollen, painful, arthritic joints, curcumin enters the system and acts as an internal cellular repairman, systematically dialing down that inflammatory fire across the entire body.
But, and this is perhaps the absolute biggest biological hack in the entire deep dive, you cannot just stir a spoonful of raw turmeric powder into hot milk, drink it, and expect a miracle. You will be sorely disappointed. The texts reveal a critical, limiting flaw of turmeric.
Yes, on its own, curcumin has exceptionally terrible bioavailability. It is a fat-soluble molecule that the human body struggles to absorb.
It just rejects it.
If you consume turmeric by itself, your liver recognizes the curcumin as a foreign substance, immediately tags it with a sugar molecule through a process called glucuronidation, and excretes almost all of it into your urine before it can ever reach your bloodstream or your joints.
It just passes right through you, completely wasted. So how do we unlock it? How do we bypass the liver's security system?
The chemical catalyst is black pepper. The analysis reveals that black pepper contains an active alkaloid called piperine. When you add just a single pinch of black pepper to that turmeric milk, the piperine enters the liver and temporarily inhibits that specific glucuronidation enzyme.
It distracts the guards.
It essentially distracts the liver's security guards for a few hours. By stopping the liver from immediately destroying the curcumin, piperine boosts the body's actual absorption of curcumin into the bloodstream by a staggering 2,000%.
2,000%, just from a tiny pinch of pepper. It's not just a recipe, it's a precise chemical equation. It's like turning a key in a lock.
It is the defining difference between merely consuming a spice for flavor and actively utilizing a highly potent functional medicine. The biological impact of this simple evening ritual is profound.
So what's the exact recipe?
You take a warm glass of milk, a spoon of pure turmeric, and that crucial pinch of black pepper, and consume it about an hour before bed. The warm milk provides an amino acid called tryptophan, which the brain converts into serotonin and then melatonin, naturally initiating the sleep cycle.
And then their curcumin goes to work.
Meanwhile, the unlocked, highly bioavailable curcumin circulates through the bloodstream, repairing the cellular damage from the day, drastically reducing the joint inflammation that causes pain, boosting overnight immunity, and ultimately allowing the nervous system to slip into what the texts describe as a deep, restorative, childlike sleep.
It replaces the painkiller and the sleep aid in one single, incredibly comforting natural cup. It's just phenomenal. And that brings us full circle. We have journeyed through this entire meticulously designed nutritional blueprint, from literally oiling the creaky joints with raw A2 ghee, rescuing the fading, shrinking muscles with the gentle protein of sprouted green moong dal, protecting the fragile honeycomb of the bones with macana and pumpkin seeds.
Then completely unclogging and repairing the digestive engine room with the viscous sponge of oat beta-glucan, the biochemical scissors of papaya, and the probiotic hydration of buttermilk.
Shielding the entire system from oxidative rest and stress with the immense power of amla and ashwagandha. And finally, repairing the daily damage and inducing deep rest with the unlocked curcumin of golden milk.
And as we conclude, we must reiterate the foundational truth of this entire physiological framework. None of these interventions are magical overnight cures. Biology takes time.
You have to stick with it.
You will not drink one single glass of golden milk on a Tuesday and wake up on Wednesday with the joints of a flexible teenager. Integrating these elements requires profound consistency. It requires a commitment to a balanced lifestyle.
And a conversation with a doctor.
And, as always, anyone looking to drastically overhaul their diet, especially if they are currently managing serious conditions or are on a strict regimen of medications, must consult their physician first. But the overwhelming evidence here, ancient tradition perfectly aligned with modern biochemistry, shows that the consistent application of these foods creates profound, systemic, life-altering changes.
So what does this all mean for you? We started this deep dive by imagining that dining room table. A table completely covered in little plastic pill organizers and amber bottles, blood pressure meds, blood sugar regulators, synthetic joint pain relievers, chemical sleep aids, a literal mini pharmacy required just to get through a single day.
Which leaves us with a critical, lingering, almost philosophical question to ponder as we close. If a few simple, historically validated ancestral food combinations like a pinch of black pepper temporarily disarming the liver to unlock the immense anti-inflammatory power of turmeric, or the amino acids in chickpeas synergizing with unrefined jaggery to instantly rebuild oxygen-carrying hemoglobin can effectively replace a dining table full of pharmaceuticals. How much of our modern, terrifying aging crisis is actually a crisis of aging at all?
That's the real question.
Are these debilitating, painful symptoms simply the inevitable, inescapable result of getting older? Or are they a symptom of us abandoning our historical culinary blueprints? Are we actually treating the inevitable disease of aging, or have we just been treating the entirely preventable disease of modern eating?
Something incredibly important to chew on the next time you look at what's sitting on your or your parents' dining room table. Until next time.